I think PPG and Student Life are one word.
Hello.
I just wrote the 30 because Student Life and everything. I was like,
Big number. And
Just
I
hide
think
it.
that was most important ones where that one was the place selectors.
All right. Let's start it. Thank you for coming today. And we're going to talk about platformers today. We're going to come into the world of action games. Woo. All right. So unlike last time we talked about the puzzle game, action game is actually challenging your physical ability, like your hand-eye coordination or your reaction times. So every time about real time, you can kind of have like action elements in there. But most of the time, if you're going to see what's the pure action game, is a fighting game, rhythm game, or some classic shooting game, because you don't have to go anywhere else. You just stay in this screen and you just do the practicing your hand-eye coordination. So that's kind of a general action groups. So it has a target reveal, and you try to challenge your reaction time, you check your skill, and then you go. That's kind of a very general action game loop. So what is platform? Platform is it gives you place to jump. So it has kind of experiment or exploration elements in there. It has the core object is you move the player between the points to point, and or there's a level consists a lot of different terrain and you have to overcome. So the first ever platformer we consider is Donkey Kong, which is the one over there. Because yeah, there's the one. That's the first ever platformer we consider about. So as you can see, the classic platformer is giving you a given target, and then you try to reach the platform, and then it goes. But in more advanced platformer, like it will give you in the place, like a mystery place, maybe in a maze or in somewhere else. And then you have to identify which path you're gonna go. And then you reach the goal and you explore more. So that's the element, that's the adventure elements being added into the action games, which is platformer right now. And today I'm going to talk about is Super Mario Bros. You cannot skip any of the words, because if you skip any words, it's different game. Okay, let's talk about developers, of course. Like I like to talk about developers because there's a lot of story behind it. The developer is Nintendo, of course, but under Nintendo, there's a lot of things underneath. And it only, Nintendo is a very old, like 100 years old company, but it only comes to the digital gaming around 50 years, within these 50 years. And then they just have 20 people trying to involve what can we do with digital video game. And then until there's 1983, because the Donkey Kong, then Nintendo decided to think about maybe we need to dedicate branches to work on their own games. And then the designer of the Donkey Kong, Shigeru Miyamoto, step in and form a branches only has 3 people to trying to develop new games for Nintendo. That's everything. That's the start of everything. And then it becomes later on, like right now, it becomes more than 1,100 people now. That is from 3 people to 1,100 people. That's a big leap within these 30 years. So what's the first 3 people there? The first 3 people there is Shigure, Takashi, and Koji. There's only 2 design and graphic. They both can do graphic. They're kind of artists already. And then they outsource the programmer with 3 outsourced programmer. And there's Hiroshi Yamaguchi is the CEO and is CFO and is executive director. So it's not involved in the game design. They're just doing the administration. So actually, Super Mario Bros. Only have 2 designers. That's the actual group within under under Nintendo. And Shigure is born in 1952. Right now is already 70 years old, kind of 70 years old. So and he joined Nintendo in 1977 as a physical toy designer. He used to make toys, physical toys that child can play around. But then he involved into digital gaming because of Space Invader. They have a Space Invader comes into Japan and Nintendo try to play around with it. So that's his start, kind of his inspiration. And his college, he graduated is kind of very cool because every year when there's a graduation ceremony, everybody had wear the costume. I just want to talk about it because it's very kind of famous in Japan. Everyone wears costume in the graduation ceremony. Anyway, let's talk about concepts. The concept is trying to improve the original Mario Bros. Mario Bros. 1983. It's a very small game. Like it's one screen, and if you walk through the edges of the screen, it will appear from the other side. So it is a classic platformer without exploration. You only have one small screen, and you're trying to defeat the monsters, the mobs, and try to avoid all the attacks only in one screen. So what they want to do is trying to improve this game. What can we do? So they think about maybe they want to have a side scrolling sideways, so they can explore, they can traverse a longer distance. So they can go from the far distance from point to point. That's what they want to do. Also, they want to have above ground and underground levels. So the players can go to the sky or go underground. That's what they wanted to do. Also, they want to have a colorful background because the original game is only the black background. They want something more colorful. So before they comes into Super Mario Bros., they actually have 3 preparation games. They make it kind of like Pac-Man-like games. They developed like in the same period of time. So actually, these 2 games has nothing involved, but they just have a coincidence that they make a similar game, which is Devil World, and also they make a kind of like a racing game, like a side fights. They trying to make a side scrolling, and they complete their acceleration in this game. The acceleration mechanic is not complete in Super Mario Bros. It's actually complete in this game. And also they try to have some more colorful background within another game, which is Kung Fu Masters. They try more graphics under this game. So only after this preparation, it comes to this Super Mario Bros. Let's take a look how it looks like. Amazing. And a lot of power, you can use the star, almost on every. I cannot. Okay, that's the. Oh, excuse me.
You don't need a console like
Well, it's-
say that, but
Yeah, yes.
One small correction, I think earlier you showed the sample King Master, right? I don't think that was developed by Nintendo.
It's not, but it's developed by Shigeru. Shigeru. It's developed by Shigeru.
Oh, I mean, it's mostly for the NES 4 that we, but not for the original.
It's not the original, yeah. But what I want to say is, yes, Kung Fu Master is not under Nintendo, but it's partnership with Nintendo, and it's kind of designed by Shigeru. Am I saying right? Shigeru, yeah, Shigeru. Okay, so let's talk about the structure. So Mario has 24 levels. Every world has 8 worlds. Each world has 4 levels. The last level is always the in the castle. And within the castle, before the castle, there is a lot of places you can go. I believe it's a mushroom world you can traverse and you just walk around. And I just want to tell you that 3 people with 2 designers, they have 24 level within 1 year. That's very amazing. And they actually work along with Zelda. Like they also developed Zelda in the same time. Come on. Hello. Okay. I'm going to show the system flow again. I know it's a little bit boring part, but this time it's a little bit different because I want to introduce one thing which is object oriented. And everything you here see is object. Player is an object, enemy is an object, platform is an object. And the first thing here is the class. And the second row here is the attributes it has, like what health it has, what kind of power state it has, and score it has, and then what kind of operations it can do. So every object has its class name and the attributes it has and the operations it can do. And every object has their relationship between each others. So a player can, of course, player cannot interact with another player, but the player can interact with enemies. And maybe enemy can interact, but not in this game. But in other games, sometimes can do. But in this game, players can interact with attack enemies, can break, can breathe, can power up, can use power up, and collect coins. So when you're yes.
Question, the slide before where you had the diagram, was that your observation or is it from the actual code of the game?
It's my observation. Yeah, there's maybe some misunderstanding, but I try to go as close as possible.
Yeah, it just was for me to.
Okay, yes, it's enough. All other analysis that previous weeks is all my observations. Okay, and let's talk about jumps. Finally, that's our main point. Okay, the simple jump. The simple jump is when you press a button and then you start ascending, and then you reach the maximum height, and you reach the peak, and then you start descending, and then you landed, and then you are on the ground. That's very simple jumps. But every simple jump, if you are have you been in the physics class, and you are going to have a perfect parabola like this. Once you jump, then you already know where you're going to land. So, but it's not gonna work in the game because in the game that would be very frustrating. Once you jump, you have no control where to go. That's gonna frustrate players. And there's most iconic game is the Ghosts and Goblins in 1985. So every time you jump, the landing position is already determined, which makes this game incredibly hard. Like when you jump in, you have to know where you're gonna land. And because if you make a mistake, then you immediately die. It's a very hard game, I would say, by that time. So what's Mario's jump? Mario jumps is very, very complicated, even though it looks very simple in the surface. So you press the jump button and you are ascending, of course you have a similar gear loop, but if you are not pressing it long enough, like if you cancel it, then you can right away start to add more gravity while descending. So that's the way the way the game cancel the jump. So you have a small jump rather than the high jump every time they have. So when you will have a slow jump, and when you reach the peak or you release button early, then you add the gravity a lot larger, maybe twice or third times of the jump of the regular gravity. It depends on what you want to have. Yes.
No, I'm just going to mention it.
Yeah. So once you jump it, you kind of jump like slowly jump high, and then when you're descending, it will be very fast. So the players would kind of have more responsive jump within the game. And actually, when I do the research, I found this very interesting diagram. Like actually, there is a jump simulator. You can determine what kind of jumps you're gonna have. So I'm going to share this link later after this game. So that's Mario's jump. Okay, because I want to proceed a little bit faster, we have some free food there. Okay, previous. Okay. The art is composed by 32 by 30 tiles, and every tiles have 8 pixel by 8 pixels. So every time you see it's a kind of grid base. And if you can tell, the cloud is actually the same essence as the trees here, the bushes here. They're just using the different color variation. And
do you know why it's not really, why it's not a perfect square? Why is it 32 to 30?
It depends on the television.
Oh.
The television standard by then it's not perfect square. And this diagram I just want to talk about is that actually a lot of people think about, is the character moving forward or actually the background moving backward? And then somebody dig into the code and found it's actually every time the Mario move forward, it will load a half word, a half of the screen in the beginning. So it will all load the half screen. Oops, excuse me. Come on. You loaded the half screen forward. And then when you go across it, then you will load it again from the back. So it's kind of using the two screens there, and then you always see the screen like moving like cameras. So it's kind of in between. Yes, characters indeed move forward, but it's within these two other screen. And then come on. So it's kind of incredible that they did make a colorful background, but sometimes not. It just symbolizes like the blue background and the black background as the night. And you can see there's a lot of things just changing the color set, like the mushroom and the pipe over there. It's just actually changing the color set. So, and I just wanted to say that the lava here is actually the same essence as the water. It's just using a different color sets. All right, that's my part. And do you have any questions? Or yes.
What do you think? Why was the jump so successful? Can you elaborate a little bit more on the jump in general as a game mechanic?
The jump mechanic by then is very successful because it's the first time they use the gravity when it reach the peak. So the players will feel they got the result faster, not like floating, not floating in the air. They can get the result faster because there's things that compared to the real world physics, like a human cannot jump like twice or third time of his height. It's not possible, but Mario can. So Mario can feel like if you're using the real world jumping mechanics, then you will feel that you are floating in the air, just like you throw the bottles in the air and then you will slowly goes down. But that's not the case in the gaming, because game is very intense. They want to make more things faster. And also in the real world, you cannot control yourself where you're going to land when you are in the air. Maybe a little bit using the air flexion if you have the temperature, but most of the time you cannot. So
I think the fact that when you jump, you're not going with the same speed as you're coming down, you're going a bit slower. That gives you a little bit of time to control your character, and that's what is so delicious, I think, about the Mario jumps, because when you jump, you still have some time to control where you are going to land, and that is what's so iconic about it.
yeah.
Did anybody, oh,
It's just-
or cancer.
Yeah, I think another thing that was really satisfying about the game is that there's a run button, so you can control the speed that you move at, and that speed is carried over into the jump. So you also have, so imagine I'm running at full speed and then I jump, and then that momentum is carried into my area movements. And then if I want to correct, I sort of have to feather in the other direction, right? And it's really careful balance of I'm going really fast and I have a lot of control, but that could just as easily get me into a bad situation, right? If I jump too far, if I fail to, again, like I said, feather, jump in a mess.
Like if you go to the Golden Goblin, you are not able to change the direction.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that if you're like running fast and then you jump, while in mid-air, you can just let go of the road. You can use
Yeah, still move.
the normal speed, and then we can control. That's actually really like that.
Yeah, on one part, I think the air control is what makes the jump really successful, but also I think they did a lot to make the jump feel super satisfying. Not only the jump itself, but also the interaction you have with the jump. If you land on an enemy or if you bump onto a brick that's above you, you have like a super satisfying sound and animation that's plays that gives the player the instant feedback that you actually had power at this jump and that you do something and it can interact with the world. And in later games, they even went further and also created, like, I don't know when they started with that. I just know that it is definitely in Super Mario Bros. For the DS. When you jump 3 times in a row and you hit the perfect jump timing, Mario will make a backflip and jump even further and make some cool moves in the air that also feels super satisfying.
Yeah, that's kind of in the future. That's in future when they get more mechanics while jumping.
You can just build on top of the already existing satisfying effect and improve on that.
Yeah.
Do you want the Odyssey, Mario Odyssey? Actually, if you want to have satisfying, like if you want to experience satisfying jumping and you can borrow somebody's Switch, I can recommend Odyssey because they went back to what they did well with jumping and then they really tried to get it in there.
Okay, there is one more there.
And jumping is also like breaking the blocks and protecting. It's like the only thing you can do besides running, so it's like the only way you have to interact with the world. And you get points for just right up and basically jumping. It's your only way to travel points except for being fast.
That's there's another point of this game which makes it very successful is there's only 2 buttons, but you can do a lot of things with 2 buttons, which is jump and run. There you can do so many things with it.
Yeah, that's what I want to go on as well. Like it's a very versatile mechanic. It's like it's used in combat. Emergence when you can jump on the enemies, and you can even when you bounce up the enemy, you can still hold the jump button and jump higher, for example. I think there's like so from Miyamoto, there's things for saying, yeah, a good idea is an idea that solves multiple problems at once. And you know, that's the jump, right?
So that's actually why I put this graph, because that tells you how many things you can do as a player. There's a lot of within the jump and run and how many things you can do, like breaking the blocks or standing on it. So when you design a game, this graph is kind of very important. If you have a lot of objects in your game, then maybe you need to have this table when you're designing.
Also, I want to bring your thoughts to one point with regards to jump. Can you think of something yet that you might have used or played with as a kid that could be the origin of the satisfaction that lies within the jumping? If you think about the satisfaction you feel when you press a button and Mario does the jumping and you even hear the sound effect, is there anything from your childhood that reminds you to a certain extent of?
Toy where you had like loops, and then you did you had two buttons, and then you press them, they jump up, and you had to get the loops into like
The water bubble kind of thing.
but what? It's like that.
I'm thinking even more basic, and this is not a trick question. I'm legit curious. Maybe I'm the only person that's just the hypothesis. Exactly. I was thinking about a rubber ball. Have you ever played as a kid, had a rubber ball in your hand, and you were like, you threw it, and then it's like boing, 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 right? And it goes through the whole screen. I think there's deep satisfaction that Miyamoto has very, very clear conception of, because can you think of another super successful character that also has a lot of qualities, great qualities of certain types of balls? Nintendo character? Yes, of course. And if you think about it, it's like, right? And you have everything that's great about the loop. And then think about the sound effects, what it does, right? It has all the satisfaction of a ball. I think the balls are a theme of Miyamoto, and I don't mean it that way.
All right, and let's have a break right now because I'm a little bit hungry. And then let's gonna have a 10 minutes break, and then we'll introduce Kai for our next session.
Maybe try to make it a little bit more of a circle flow that discussions are a little less awkward. What's your feeling about it? Yeah, this is cool, like, and also please, but feel free to get yourself from whatever you're currently like that. Let everybody sit somewhere. Oh, do you have a knife?
Meine Zuhörerheit, ja, Möglichkeit, yes.
Weißt du, was der gefragt hat? Oder gehst du einfach mit mir? Okay. Also, eigentlich das genau darauf hinaus. Okay, aber ich finde, das ist was, also was ich hier sagen will, wo machen wir das aktuell an Publisher?
Ja.
Wegen den Scheitern, weil ich publish gesehen habe. Und klar, du hast nicht das ist nicht das gleiche wie andere. Und ich sage es nicht, weil ich sage, du sollst es tun, du musst es tun, aber ich würde sagen, du passt halt jetzt auf. Und wenn es nicht nein, kann ich sagen, wenn du einfach nur ein bisschen der Push oder der Campus fehlt, da hast du.
Ich glaube, ich würde überhaupt.
Ja. Weil das, was ich kann dir sagen, ist einfach nur meine Kosten hochladen. Dann, weil es kommt, also es wird keine Kohle bei der rumkommen. Das wird es einfach nicht inhalten. Aber was du damit zeigen kannst, in dem Moment, wo du da das Publishing hast, ist, lieber Publisher, ich habe hier quasi mit unserem Studi-Publishing Label, ich habe den ganzen Prozess schon durchlaufen, hier ist die Demo. Ihr könnt jetzt von uns snacken oder nicht. Ne? Das Spiel, ich wechsle den Publisher, jetzt veröffentlichen wir das Ding. Das, ich weiß nicht, wenn du eher ein bisschen AAA oder so, dann
ich habe eine riesige Projektstart.
wenn du jetzt mal dann würde ich sagen, schön, fuck auch. Aber ich weiß noch, wenn es jetzt ist, also, weil man ist halt eine Zeit lang motiviert und irgendwann ist es wirklich noch so der Moment, wo es auch besser wäre, wenn man was in Aussicht hätte, und das ist dann nicht den Aussicht. Also da ja, also was
That is too late.
This is from summer camp still when my kneecap popped out.
Okay.
And
Because of you're playing volleyball or something?
no, I mean, once upon a time I did knock my kneecap out
I
playing
know.
volleyball.
You said that before. I just wonder if you played volleyball recently.
No, it's just because it popped out during summer camp and injured my knee really badly. It was just one stupid movement.
Alright.
And now I'm just wearing it
I also got a same injury. And then
Really?
yeah, I got stubborn the same thing.
Das letzte Jahr ein ganzes Jahr sein soll. Also da immer noch in 6 Jahren auch gesagt, vor 3 Monaten am Ende eine Passfertige kriegen, weil dann kommt wieder verschenktes Potenzial. Jetzt weiß Bescheid. Na gut, aber ich kann jetzt neidisch. Nein, ich weiß klar, das ist okay. Ich glaube, das ist gerade einfach nicht.
So, ja.
Geht's? Ja, und für die Filmsachen nicht. Ich habe im Moment für die Professor und wir haben 3 Games gleichzeitig. Davon sind 2 in der Final Phase und eines ist in der Crunch. Ich habe keine Ahnung. Das hier ist Freizeit. Und das ist so nah an Freizeit, wie ich angehe. Und ich meine, das ist auch toll, weil ich bin von anderen kann auch tatsächlich das cool daran, dass jetzt Gegner das als Hiwi macht. Praktisch bei einer Kapital mal schauen, wie sich das dann du bist ja ich weiß nicht, wie es weitergeht. Ich habe es nicht gemacht. Das und bis jetzt auch das ja, nee, total. Also ich meine, ich glaube, das ist wirklich die ideale Mischung, weil er ist wirklich strukturiert, ich glaube, dadurch kann ich ein bisschen was reinbringen. Nein, Zwang, das wichtig ist, an der Ende sonst ich glaube, das jetzt einfach mal auf eine andere. Ja, genau, aber also deshalb hinein ist es wahrscheinlich. Aber ich gehe halt also da ist ja eigentlich yes. Oh, that's no, I try to move my voice.
All right. Everybody, grab it again. Okay, I think we can start.
All right. So I should probably quickly say who even am I? I'm Kai, I'm a game designer in year 7. As you can see, I am very often confused, it happens. In games, I'm sort of a generalist. I've done a lot of stuff. You can see the list there. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff, and I probably don't even remember everything. So, I'm here to talk to you about my work on Roro's Fishy Adventure and jumping. So, what even is Roro's Fishy Adventure? It is a puzzle platformer that we started in the 3rd semester for a collaborative project. And then in our 5th semester, we continued working on it. We iterated on it, and as you can see, it looks pretty different. And as you may have guessed from the topic of today's Forum Ludorum, I'm here to primarily talk to you about what is a jump. And just to very quickly put it out there, it's a mode. It enables the player to move around the game, to basically go where they want to go, etc. And that means to freeze the player. If it's restricted, there's a problem. And it's omnipresent. It's the thing your player is going to spend most of the time doing. It's mechanics interact with every other part of the game. You can jump pretty much in any situation as long as you're able to jump in the game. Unless you're talking with an NPC and you're not jumping, but yeah. So, and what about a jump? I'll talk about the anatomy of a jump. We already covered some of it, like jump arcs, particularly the most basic jump arc, the parabolic shape with the horizontal distance x that you actually travel, and the vertical height y, which usually reached about x divided by 2 if you have a perfect parabolic arc, but very often games will do it differently, but they essentially bisect the jump into 2 jump arcs, different parabolas, smash together like Frankenstein's monster to create the jump they want. And this is usually achieved by changing gravity. For example, if you increase the gravity by 2, you're going to fall faster. It's going to make it easier to estimate where you're going to land. It's going to reduce air time, so you're going to be able to jump against them, which is of course great because jumping is usually fun. Of course, you could also double half the gravity and extend the reach of the jump. So that should probably be accompanied with some other thing communicating this change, because that's not going to feel as natural to the player. It's like, oh, why am I going this far? So another thing you usually find is variable jump height, where the player can let go before they reach the peak of the jump, and they will immediately transition to the double gravity to fall faster and to essentially be like, okay, you only want to jump this high, then you only jump this high. Usually you'll also have a minimum height, which has to be reached before you actually enter this descending phase. And all in all, this is essentially something that gives more control to the player. And with jump box, you can get fancy. You can add another segment at the top, at the peak, where you, for example, have the gravity, and be like, hey, you have some hang time, brace yourself, and then you ramp up the gravity and they fall. You can also you can get really Frankenstein with the jump box. You can have normal gravity to start, transition to double gravity to have them slow down very quickly as they approach the peak, insert the hang time, and then double gravity again to have them slam down to the ground. You can get fancy, you can do as you wish, and here's the jump box that we had in Roro. On the left, you can obviously see what we had in our first version, VA3. Very mediocre jump box, just has double gravity at the end. And then in the advanced version, you can see we got fancy with some special abilities and the like. I'll talk more about those later. So, how the hell do you actually make a jump feel good? There's two main things that I found in game design that you need to really focus on if you want to make a jump feel good. One of them is control. And what do I mean by control? I mean that it has to be responsive. If you do an input, the game should react quickly. It has to be natural. The game should behave as you, as the player, expect. The expectation is going to be somewhat founded in what you actually know of the physical laws of the real world and your understanding of how physics work in other games. And it has to be precise. It should enable the player to move exactly as they want. You don't want to be slipping and sliding all over the place unless you want it to be a specific challenge in the game, but you want the player to be able to move, stop, etc. as they want to. So there's another aspect for this, which I call readability for control. What you can see here is a game I made in VA3 for a level design assignment for a manual, where the player has 2 jumps, and if they jump, the rectangle turns the little square, turns a little bit gray, and you jump the second time, it turns entirely gray, and you regain your jumps when you land on any black rock or touch any black rock. Another example would be Celeste, where if you use a dash ability, your hair turns blue. You can immediately see I can no longer dash. What these things do, they communicate what you're actually going to do in the moment. You don't need to remember, oh, I already jumped once, oh, I already dashed. You can immediately read it out of the screen so you know what your options are, you can decide how you proceed. There is more to this. For example, with climbing, where I have to set the toggle mode. So if you toggle climbing on, see this little test above your head, it's like, yeah, if you stick to a wall, you're going to cling onto it. And then if you stick to a wall, you will also see, it's this one actually. You will see that the sweat drops and you start blinking red to like indicate, hey, you're about to run out of stamina, you're about to drop. So you're gonna have to move away. And here's the next thing. You remember how I said it was supposed to feel natural? You're gonna break the laws of nature, as I mentioned already earlier. It's control over realism. The player in Celeste can change the direction of the jump mid-air. And if they let go of the direction of input, Madeline also rapidly slows down mid-air to drop down to the ground more closely to the horizontal position where you let go of the movement button. So that's something also that you do. And another thing, the next thing to make a jump feel good is forgiveness mechanics. I'm also going to be talking about Celeste again because there's a wonderful Twitter thread that's also available on one of the devs' websites about all of the forgiveness mechanics. And first up, here's some more general ones, like coyote time, where, as you can see, shortly after walking off a ledge, you can still jump. So if players rapidly running at a ledge and then it's like, okay, I'm going to jump right at the edge, they have this window afterwards, right? Even if they press jump too late, they'll still jump, which makes it easier for them. Then You also have things like jump buffering, where if you hold the jump button just before you hit the ground, because you want to jump immediately again, instead of just considering that as input, that input is saved and you will jump on the exact frame that you land. Another one would be the half gravity jump, the hang time, where it essentially just slows down how quickly you fall, and it gives you more time to brace for impact, to adjust for landing. It's a bit hard to see, but it's quite important because really it gives the player like, okay, I can take some breathing space here out there before you start slamming down.
Also, by the way, the car, did you guys see the car? It's so satisfying, makes the jump feel even more satisfying.
Yeah. And then you also have things like jump corner correction. If you hit your head on a corner, the game will try to wiggle you around it. It's not going to be like, oh, you hit the corner. Screw you, you're falling back down. It's like, oh, you hit the corner. We'll let it slide. You have a similar thing here where if you dash sideways into a corner of the platform, you'll be popped on top of it. It's about essentially being like, oh, you're just barely not making it. Nah, you're making it, don't worry. And then there's also some more specific forgiveness mechanics, which you will need to figure out based on your own game. For example, in Celeste, you have these fast moving platforms that will add momentum to your jump. And essentially, you can still press jump shortly after the platform stops and still get the momentum boost. There's this small window afterwards, so it's like, hey, yeah, you still get the momentum. And another thing would be white wall jump windows, which you could also use in any game that has white wall jumps, where you don't actually need to be touching the wall. For example, for an old wall jump, you can be 2 pixels away from it, it's fine. With the super wall jump, which is dash up and then wall jump, you can be up to 5 pixels away from the wall. And the game will say, yeah, you get the wall jump, let's go. And then this is a particularly interesting one because I mentioned earlier, so let's we have stamina. And you can climb up, you can jump up while climbing, and that consumes a lot of stamina, about a quarter of the entire stamina pool. And if you give a direction input shortly after jumping up directed straight up the wall, it converts to a wall jump and refunds the stamina used because it's like, oh, you didn't want to jump up the wall, you wanted to jump away from it. Cool. Here's a wall jump, get your stamina back. So yeah, forgiveness mechanics are about nudging things in the player's favor. All of them care about increasing timing or positioning windows. And then another thing to make your jump feel good, which I will relatively quickly go through because I have 60 slides, is the addition of juice, which like squash and stretch and camera shake and sound effects and particles. And these add a lot to feel things, which as Greta pointed out earlier, for example, the car moving when you jump off of it. This is this kind of stuff. Now, moving on, I'm going to actually talk about how the hell do you find the right jump for your game, because there isn't one true answer for every game, because every game is different. Who would have guessed? And there's a lot of questions, obviously, like how far should you jump, how high, how long should the jump be, what jump mark segments you use, and it's going to depend on, like, in my experience, on like 2 things. Your game direction, which is like the primary idea behind your game that informs every other aspect of the game, like your gameplay pillars, your desired core experience, like what's this game actually about, and then what special abilities do you have? Can you dash, double jump, wall jump, etc.? What can your character do in addition to the default jump and move around? And now, for example, I'll go through some examples. For example, Celeste, again, you have a relatively small jump actually. You have a clear set of abilities, which is jumping, climbing, dashing, wall jumping, etc. And you need to use all of these abilities in tandem to solve the level, which is why they can afford to have a relatively small jump, because you can do so many things and chain them together. Now in Super Meat Boy, as you can see, that you have a pretty damn big jump. You jump about 6 times as high as the character themselves, and you move quite fast. And generally, the movement is quite fast, and Meat Boy slides down walls because he's meat and leaking blood everywhere. He's slippery. And however, you can wall jump definitely, so you can just jump up along one wall. In general, this game is a lot about like speed. As you can see, there's also a timer up here, but it's like, yeah, you want to be fast. So that's what the design of Super Meat Boy reinforces. You can be fast, you can cover huge amounts of distance very quickly. And now we have, for example, Unravel, which has a very low jump height, and the movement generally feels somewhat heavy. The focus here is on the special abilities of the character. They have a bunch of them. They can climb if they throw up their yarn to latch onto an anchor point. They can climb and pull themselves up like a mountain climber and get up there. They can also tie the yarn to 2 anchor points, like you can see right there. and then use it as a trampoline to jump higher. Give it a second, you'll see.
Oh.
So yeah, and then there's of course also the possibility of using your yarn to swing. Like this enables you to move pretty far horizontally with momentum, etc. So Unravel really focuses on these special abilities and using a yarn to get everywhere and using it for pretty much anything. Now, how do we do this in Roro's Fishy adventure? Well, very quickly while building, the players explore a lighthouse built by an extinct civilization of crab people, and the game is heavily nautically and astrologically themed. So there's a lot of like focus on like some exploration and awe. And you're playing as these two little fellas, Harold and Rodney. They're siblings, they're really quite young children still. They're sort of soft and squishy, and they sort of embody a bit of a childlike curiosity, which works quite well with the exploration and awe. So this whole game is about running around and looking at things and being like, wow. And that also informed sort of our jump arcs. For example, this jumping very high to have this sort of like childlike inside of that, wow, really jumping up.
They're fish.
Yes, they're fish. They're anglerfish to be precise. And so they can jump quite high, and so this is supposed to capture this childlike joy and energy. And as you can see, as you might be able to see, the jump arcs are actually slightly different. They are individualized, like Rodney, the yellow one, jumps higher than Harold, and Harold falls faster than Rodney. So there's differences in between the characters as well.
How do you achieve that?
I'll get to that right on now, actually. When the player presses the jump button again, they very briefly float in the air. We are missing an animation there where they're supposed to flap the flippers to sort of emulate this. Yeah, we're staying in the air. It's sort of childlike process to stay in the air, and it's also sort of to extend the vertical reach of the jump, because it's like, yeah, you want to cross that gap, here have an ability to let you do that.
But this is on a different planet where water works differently, right?
There's a couple of physics differences compared to Alpha. I won't get into
What's
it.
the war?
What?
What's the war?
What's the war? There's a lot of war. There's a lot of more. There's a net of stars preventing the dark sea falling down into the normal sea. There's a barrier of air, and the moon is supposed to be an anchor point, but it got stolen by Iran. There's a lot of more. So what you can see in these jump arcs as well, particularly in this ability, is like Rodney and Rodney here has a stronger gravity modifier on his hand height, but it's shorter. So he doesn't have that much vertical reach, but he stays more on his vertical he doesn't have that much horizontal reach, but he stays more stable on his vertical. Meanwhile, Harold has a longer hang time when he presses the jump button again. However, he doesn't reduce gravity as much, so he starts falling a bit more, so his vertical stability isn't as great. There's these individual differences also are in their other movement, but I won't get into that because again, I only have so many slides. Now, there's other abilities like the hook bite, where one player has to bite onto a hook and can serve as a baton to the other player. There's sort of like siblings using each other as stepping stones, and also they bite random things because they can. They're children. Yeah.
So the game is multiplayer, right?
Yeah, it's local multiplayer.
Okay, how did you fix the issue that when one person plays as the blue fish and then later on maybe plays as the yellow fish, it doesn't get confused for the jump height and jump feeling and
You don't change fish. You don't change fish. Or if you do change fish, well, the fish is different.
okay, cool.
And aside from that, we only currently have this one level, so there's not much opportunity for changing fish. And all the jump arcs are fairly similar still, though in further development, I would probably go and further diversify their jump arcs to more individualize them and make them more separate characters even more. But yeah, they use each other as stepping stones because that's what siblings do, and they bite on random things because they can, because they're children. And then there's also the ability to eat a crate and spit it out again and drop it so that the other player can use it as a platform. Again, it's finding random things because they can. It's usable as a stepping stone as well, and it's also usable for physics puzzles, which there are some in the game, because again, this is a puzzle platform. And then there's also this one mechanic, which is the star classes, where you can pick up these star classes and you can make your own platforms. And essentially the only part of the platform that is solid is the part that you shine a light on, which enables players to build platforms, so find their own solutions, and it requires trust and cooperation between the two players because your ability to stand on the platform is relying on the other guys. So again, siblings helping each other, or if you're in a spat, just turn off the light and then drop. Now, moving on.
How many friendships were destroyed during the playtesting? No, how well did people actually manage? How successful were people with this specific mechanic?
It's janky still. It's janky still, but we have this also in the original Roro just with individual platforms where it worked quite well, and it was sort of precarious. We had for example, was just a bridge where the yellow sibling had to shine the light on there, and the purple sibling walked off it. I was really just truncated the light of like, you're gonna follow me with the light, right? You're gonna follow me, yeah? Yeah, good. So it works. This version still needs a bit of polish. So moving on beyond the jump for a bit, we're going to talk camera and level design. Yes.
That's strict mechanic in the light. Did you also think about the for movements that you mentioned? Like for example, if they are
Not yet.
who is like directing the light, what if that person like redirects the light a bit earlier than the other player who's jumping, for example?
I have not yet what about forgiveness in regards to this.
Okay.
I have in regards to the hooks, which is just similar to the jump buffering, where if you press the button and a label still will be on there. But in regards to star classes, I haven't thought about the forgiveness just yet. Okay, so beyond the jump, cameras on the side, and I'm gonna go talk about the camera. So what makes a camera into a 2D platformer? It frames the relevant info for the player. It frames the content of the game so as to display relevant information to the player, and it should be smooth and non-disruptive. So it behaves so as to avoid sudden dragging movements to deal with the player's experience. Now, how does it actually look in practice? Because it's just an abstract statement. Here's a quick look at the camera in Roro's Fishy adventure. It's not that great, honestly, because we are working with a local multiplayer game and we need to keep both the fish in the camera at all times, which, as you can see just now, doesn't always work out. So the camera in Roro actually still needs a fair amount of polish. But for our purposes, because it's a puzzle platformer, it works more or less at the moment. But now moving on to cameras more in general, like this basic types, like this lock position camera, which is always stable. It keeps the entire level in frame at all times. It's naturally smooth and it has all relevant information at all times. It's really very easy to tell where you're going with this kind of camera. Now, there's also the player type camera, which follows vertical and horizontal movement and makes it kind of hard to tell what's below the character because you sometimes don't see the ground, and it's generally hard to control what is on screen, and it's just a bit unstable and not that great for platform. So how the hell do you get the benefits of the long camera onto this thing? Because maybe you want to have the camera follow your player. Well, there's a thing called ground lock / platform lock, where it locks the vertical movement of the camera to the ground / platform the character last stood on. For example, in Mario, you can see the moment Mario jumps and lands on the next platform, the camera moves up. If Mario doesn't land on the platform, the camera doesn't move up, it stays locked to the camera vertically. It stays locked to the platform vertically. So it keeps what is below the character on the screen, so you'll be able to see the ground. It's easy to judge where you'll land, and it's an overall smoother camera experience because cameras are going all over the place. Another thing that helps is look ahead, where the position the center focus point ahead of the character. So the player can sort of see what is ahead of them. We'll wait for a second to jump a bit. Yeah, just now you saw the camera moved and put Mario in the left part of the screen. And so basically it's looking at what is ahead. What is the direction that is Mario moving into? So it's framing what the player is going to encounter in a bit, not where the player is right now. A good practice is to implement a small dead zone where the camera doesn't move if you change directions, like Mario is moving back and forth there. The camera does not move changing directions because, well, he hasn't really dedicated to himself to a single direction yet. He's going back and forth. So it would be annoying if the camera jumped back and forth all the time while you just change directions. aside from that, the camera can also be a guiding element. Where this is from the VA3 version of Roro, where the camera zoomed out to the side of the level, sort of frame the level, show what's going on, give an overview of like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what we want to interact with. We have some more examples of this, where again, it sort of frames what's happening in the level. It shows the level, it shows where you want to go, where the exit is, etc. Now, you don't need to do this at the start of the level. What you can do is, if a player approaches an interesting point, something they should be interacting with, that the camera zooms out and focuses on that a bit to be like, hey, yeah, you can do something with this. You want to maybe interact with this. This is an important bit of the level. There is a game called Enlightening Shadow Planet that I don't have on the slides here, but I have a video to that explaining the camera system linked in this all the way at the end, who talks about this sort of thing. It's about 10 minutes, I recommend you watch it. It's not a platformer, but it goes into that sort of thing that I mentioned, like, hey, yeah, you can sort of show what big things there are.
Should we watch it after this talk?
We can.
Just let's try to remember.
Yeah. Now, moving on from the camera, I'm going to talk about this in a bit. So the level design should be clear, readable, and comfortable. What does that mean? Well, it should be clear if a jump is possible or not. It should really be like, hey, yeah, you can do this, you can't do this. It should be readable, as in the player should be able to tell where they can go and what effects environmental hazards have. And it should be comfortable in the sense that the level design should restrict the player's ability to move about. Now, for clarity, I have a wonderful example of the same jump twice, just with the platform that you can see right here, moved slightly. In the left example, it really looks like the player might be able to just make it, but they can't. You know, in the right example, that distance is slightly increased. It's sort of like, yeah, no, you're not making that. There's like a couple of broadleads difference between you and that platform. Not a chance. You're gonna need some help from your sibling. So this is sort of what clarity is all about. Making sure that the player knows like, hey, yeah, I can do this, I can't do this. For readability, I have a bad example from VA3 where it leaves obscure where the corner is over here. It's a bit hard to see, but like here's a platform, and as you can see, the Roro just fell down in the water and died because didn't see where the corner was because the leaves obscured it. You might have Celeste, for example, it's always rather clear with the hazards are, with the platform are, etc. Even, well, just to know, even these bits where there's like snow on the platforms, because of the sharp edges, you can very easily estimate where the corner actually is. So yeah, readability. Make sure this stuff is readable. It's very annoying to be unable to tell where a platform starts and ends and being like, fuck, do I jump now? Do I jump later? Do I jump now? Do I jump later? Yeah. And then for comfortability, it's basically similar to forgiveness mechanics. It's about building tolerance into the level that David played. In general, you should give your players space and need to use them basically. For example, this here, you jump down, you want to use your hover to get into this vertical gap, into this horizontal gap, and if it's this tiny, it's kind of hard to hit that. Now, if you increase that size, it's like, oh yeah, you have all this space to trigger your hover ability and just get in there. It just makes it easier to use your movement abilities. I have an example of an old test level made for characters with smaller jumps. Well, on the left here, you can see like this is a tight gap, it's a pain in the ass to get into, really not that easy. And then it keeps going and then almost bumps into the edge here. This is a tiny hole, and then you reach the exit. Now, this is the exact same level, just adjusted to be more comfortable. But it's like, yeah, you have all this space. Just go over there. You're not about to bump your head in there. You can get up there easy, and there's all these sort of gaps. But it's just like, you don't need to be super precise about it. But it's still like the sort of thing of like, yeah, cool. I have the space, use my abilities. I don't need to time it frame perfect or ideally, or just approach it just the right angle. I can sort of go at my rhythm as a player. So yeah, that's what I mean when I talk about comfortability. And yeah, that's about it, what I have to say. Here's a bunch of further readings and viewings and stuff about, for example, making stuff feel good. Mostly about Celeste, actually, because Celeste is an amazing platform and go play it. Jump packs. I also have another tool that is also about figuring out how to make a good jump by the Game Maker's Toolkit Java action card that you can also play on Itch, just like the one that Ping also found, just a different one. Yeah, and then for cameras here, this instead of twisted shadow planet camera explained, this is like Super Mario World camera, you can get some dude and both about his ideas on 2D cameras, and yeah, also level design workshop on Celeste, if you want to know more about 2D platform level designs, it's also a great place to look into. And yeah, y'all got any questions?
Do you have thoughts on games like Ghosts and Goblins and Castlevania, which like obviously have like very abrasive jumps by today's standards?
I think there's a space for them. I mean, in recent years, we also had something like jumping, which was hugely successful. Mind you, jumping sort of went and broke the rules of a good jumper, saying, yeah, you're gonna have to really determine, do you want to jump this far? How long do you want to hold the space button before you let go to figure out how far you're jumping and how much are you willing to risk? But I think there's a space for that in the sense that one, historically, it's the legacy of game design of how it used to be. And two, I think if you really make a part of it design, like in jumping, you can have it be like, hey, yeah, you jump, you dedicate yourself to this. This is a very conscious decision that you're making. Don't jump so lightly.
Yeah, because I find that a very compelling quality of those types of games. Where I mean, against explaining in Ghosts and Goblins, or you know, some one thing slide well. The jump is completely committal, and there's only 3 base stars, either neutral, forward, or backward. And the game is still very fair in the sense that you can anticipate the kind of threats that are coming at you. You can anticipate, okay, I might back myself into the corner or something. It's just it's sort of, I think there's an idea in game design where if a threat is incoming, I want to be able to instantly avoid it, right? I want to always have some kind of fail safe.
Yeah, you're not able to react.
Exactly. Whereas the Go Goblins, it's like, yeah, if I made a bad decision like 10 seconds ago, I get fucked. Yeah, that might be enough that I get fucked, right? But that's not necessarily fair, right? Because like the game still telegraphed it and still show how the threats kind of work. And so sort of, it's an interesting form of game design. I think it's like sort of going away probably. I think. Okay, I'm super going like nerdy notes, but so Armored Core 6 recently came out, right? And obviously that's the latest game from Software. From Software games for the Soul games where you have the ability to just dodge at any time, right? And fine. And then with Armored Core, people are like, okay, where the fuck's the dodge button? Why can't I just dodge the instantly? And it's like, no, you actually have to watch where projectiles are going and like position yourself correctly. And I think that is cool that I want to see more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I would say is it depends on what kind of challenge you want to make for the players.
Yeah.
Like for jumping, every jump is actually a perfect simple jump, but it just depends on how long you press the button, I think. So so like there's a lot of simple platformer like which not even involving jumps, like Get It Over with Frolly, I forgot the name with Frolly whatever, kind of like that. But it's not even a jump, but you are using the hammer trying to jump with it. So there is a lot of platformers out there. It depends on what kind of challenge you want to challenge the players.
I mean, would we be open to have something like a small YouTube party, just quickly looking up certain game mechanics? For example, who of you has played Rayman, the 2D series? So there is, right, when we're talking about jumps, because you talked a little bit about the delay and how to take care of the landing, what I enjoyed a lot about Rayman. When I played the original 2D one, was that you have this banana hair kind of helicopter gliding. So you jump and then it's like, and you have complete control over where you land and how you drop on things. So are there any other jump mechanics you can think of? Oh yeah, right, I forgot that.
Maybe watch the.
Raymond?
Rayman in one word, Rayman, and then, yeah, exactly, just, I mean, Legends is, I think, the newest one. But you can just also, you can do Rayman jump. Or Rayman fly, or something like that, or you can try to scroll somewhere in the game where it's visible.
Oh, Rayman, oh.
Like, is there anything
Yeah.
else in this game? I mean, Rayman is
That's so long. Yeah, very well known.
I cannot explain to you how extremely super cool and red it looks like.
I just see.
Yeah, to be honest, to me the graphics. I mean, but that is what I can get out right there.
Oh, by the way, about the graphics, if you have noticed that in Ghost and Goblin, the graphics actually better than Mario, even if they are come out from the same years.
Yeah, it's not game, so the hardware is just a lot.
Can you also type Commander Keen and joystick? Because do you have anyone of you, okay, have you ever played Commander Keen? Have you ever heard, wait, who has heard of Commander Keen? Okay, okay, who has heard of Doom? Yeah, those were the first games that studio produced.
Yeah.
So yeah, take the long play Commander Keen 4 for example. They were like, that's what me and my sisters played on our computers when we were, I don't know, 10. And yeah, that's the joystick. So basically here you have a jump movement where you can jump, right? And then you have the joystick where you can jump higher. And then there's platforms through also those batteries, possibly, cassette tapes. I don't know what it is. They actually give you velocity. If you jump at exactly the right moment, you can, while it goes down, you can, use it to jump yourself
Higher.
higher, exactly. And that's after this game, the guys is produced and then
So there's one video I want to suggest, by Ego Raptor, the Castlevania video.
Eagle?
Ego Raptor. Castlevania. It's like Castlevania 4, yeah.
By the way, we're going to talk about like Metrovania-like games next week. So which one you want to talk about?
That was the first one that I wanted to talk.
The first one.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I need to install Brave.
Okay, I'm good.
For Super Castlevania. So I did that sequelitis episode in Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 2, and it was a hoot. But I wanted to make some mention of some stuff in Castlevania 4 Super Cast. You see, Castlevania 4 gets a lot of praise from some of the gamer guys because it doesn't have a lot of the stupid RPG bullshit from Simon's Quest, and it tries really hard to bring back Castlevania to Castlevania 1. But supercharged! See, like in Castlevania 1, when you jump, you just kind of committed to a super weird jump arc for the next 2 seconds, and you can only whip forward, and it takes a while to whip, and for some people, this control scheme is unacceptable. Castlevania 4, on the other hand, made movement much more accessible. It's faster paced, and you can whip in whatever the fuck direction you want, up or down or diagonal or... You can jump and then control your mid-air velocity, and everything is just a little more freeform, so you don't gotta buy a fucking engagement ring for your jump arcs. But the question that I think is really important here isn't whether or not this is better than Castlevania 1 or 2, or whatever the fuck one comes between the second and fourth ones. The question is, how does this change Castlevania? This question is important because everything in Castlevania 1 was deliberate. The reason items exist is because your whip is so clunky and slow, and jumping is such a major pain in the fucking ass that maybe sometimes you just want to throw an axe. Maybe you just want to toss crosses around it. Oh boy, it came back. The items were essentially the meta in Castlevania. Knowing what's ahead and planning your items accordingly was really important, and as we know, that's what Castlevania was all about, being careful and planning things out. It was much easier to get through certain situations by being able to throw shit upwards in an arcing motion or corner throwing bottles of perfume at the ground to make shit smell nice. Basically, in Castlevania 1, whipping stuff was not an optimal solution to killing things, and it incentivized you to get better with the items. Castlevania 4 threw it out the fucking window! Whipping was all that mattered. It's fast, it's efficient, it's the strongest thing you have. Why the fuck do you even need the items? Like, check this shit out. In level 1-3, there are these goofy shrub, seaweed, whatevers that fall from the ceiling and crawl along the ground like a dumbass. You conveniently have the smelly perfume item you throw on the ground to attack them, but oh wait, whipping them and ducking is equally as effective. Sorry guys. Cool, man. In level 2-1, you get the axe early on that's clearly meant for the spiders that come down from the sky, but you could just whip diagonal up at them. Even the tiny spiders they shoot are in the perfect trajectory to fuck them up with one whoop. In level 2-3, same deal, you have the axe when the waterfall is pushing you down, and it clearly wants you to kill all these bats and hands.
Second videos, like, because we can't, what we should do is we should post the links to the videos into the Forum Ludorum channel so we can all binge watch ourselves to sleep. Would you quickly like to put on the Mario Odyssey, just put Mario Odyssey jump, because I mean, we know that Nintendo are the masters of the jumping longer.
Not only Odyssey, Mario 64 is also very classic.
64 players. 64.
But if you type in jump, I'm curious to see if they have some compilations of all the different jumps that you can.
Hey, wir sind green
It's really hard to say, like,
nur echten Ökostrom.
there's
Denn
so
nur
many.
echter Ökostrom schützt auch das Klima. Mit eigenen Anlagen, Wasser, Wind und Sonne. Mach's möglich mit
Let me see my. This one.
Example is no more complicated than press A to do B. But in more recent games, like Super Mario 3D,
Oh no,
the only way to repair that's an example is one thing. Mario's jump is directly connected to his horizontal
world
direction
is
and
now the
speed
thing, okay.
before you press the A button. The only way to clear a massive gap then is to start with a run-up.
this world is not.
You can also move in midair and perform different jumps by starting with a spin or an abrupt turn. So, back in Donkey Kong, you could effectively just turn Mario's left and right jumps into dedicated buttons on the arcade cabinet. But in every other Mario game, the D-pad or analog.
Du willst dich da unten rasieren, was? Pass auf, dass deine Duschszene nicht zum Horrorfilm wird. Der neue Gillette Intimate mit gummiertem Griff und doppeltem Gleitstreifen für weniger Hautirritation und Verletzungen. Gillette Intimate, wenn's wirklich, wirklich drauf ankommt.
Unsere Anzeigen arbeiten genauso hart wie Sie.
Too many ads.
Sie bringen Ihre Kunden und Verkäufer näher, als Sie sich vorstellen können. Kleine Unternehmen erzielten im Durchschnitt 22% ihres Umsatzes mit Amazon Ads.
Okay, do you have any? Maybe here.
Put on speed on.
Speed run. Oh yeah, that's true.
How to Super Mario Odyssey, how to jump higher and farther. It's 2 minutes. Top 16 hardest trick jumps, Super Mario Odyssey. You just have to type it exactly, and then let's just, for example,
Which
look
one?
at the trick jumps or something, just to see.
Okay, IGN. Okay.
Hey, Württembergische, wie läuft das mit eurer Mobilitätsgarantie?
How they do it.
In Super Mario Odyssey, Mario has more movement range than ever before, and thanks to Cappy, you can make some truly amazing jumps to reach distant platforms.
Just like
There's a trick to getting where you want to go to reach otherwise impossible destinations. Here's how to jump the farthest distances in Mario Odyssey.
Isn't it?
There are many ways to initiate a
Oh, you can jump on
you're
your
trying to
head?
get to.
Yeah, exactly.
Long jumps cover a lot of horizontal space, while backwards or side somersaults give you a lot of vertical air, and triple jumps are good in between. However, when you find that's not quite enough, try this trick. At the height or end of your jump, throw out Cappy and hold down the Y button.
97, I think. 97 on Meta 4.
Then immediately press the trigger button that will cause Mario to stop in midair and flip to perform a ground pound. However, right as he flips, let go of Y, and tap and hold it again fast, and Mario will go from a ground pound into a forward dive. As long as you are quick to hold down Y again, Cappy will remain in position for Mario to bounce off of it, and resetting him from his diving position. Since Mario is no longer diving, you can then throw out Cappy again if you need to change direction. Throwing Cappy will allow you to pivot by holding the control stick in whatever direction you need to face.
So I just want to ask if you have any question about the Roros or...
Note that Cappy can't be bounced off more than once. Otherwise, you could just fly around in the sky forever.
Okay.
This may take a lot of practice, but there are many different ways you can combine the Cappy dive jump to reach new areas, find shortcuts, and more. Once you get the hang of it,
just keep inside of yourself, why do you think jumping is so satisfying? It feels like we have more jumping games than we have, for example, swimming or flying games, even though flying could be very satisfying. It's something we can do as humans.
Maybe it's something we do ourselves, not like something you throw or something like yourself can be.
There is no right answer to this. I'm wondering myself what's so satisfying about it. Maybe let's quickly hear the people.
Oh, yeah. I guess maybe in comparison to flying, which is like that's too out there, kind of like jumping in a game is like just liberating enough because it's like, but it's still relatable, right? Like I can jump, I just can't jump as well as Mario can. So it's like a relatable fantasy kind of like flying is so far out there that that I can't relate to it, I guess. And also like jumping is very kind of predictable because it's so short. It has this clear structure of like I get this energetic lift off, and that's very liberating kind of, and then I know at a certain point like I will have to come down again. So it's not like this complete freedom of like move anywhere, do everything. It's more like problem related, right? And you have one obstacle and you want to jump over that. And it's not like I don't know, I have to fly through like this entire level that's way too huge, but it's just like very enjoyable way to interact with the environment like immediately.
Yeah, but
yeah, but
so let's
same thing that's like if you are flying, it exists whatever times, but it's still there forever, and it's like close enough for people to be like, okay, this comes close to flying, but still like the rules that I know, gravity and predictability, you still apply. Like if you say, okay, you can fly now, you don't like know what this means. Can you fly without gravity? Do you have wings like a bird? Is there like any conditions that you have to look out for, like airflow or whatever? And also, yeah, like the first thing that came to my mind was like the moon jump thing, where you're on the moon and you have like low gravity and you can like jump super far and super high. So that's like the thing for me.
I think even though I agree with both points, what really excites me about jumping is the pulse itself it has and the rhythm that it creates within the game. I don't think flying creates that rhythm or pulse effect because you're just walking in a different medium with different speed most of the time. Or when you're swimming, you're just walking, but I mean, you're really walking slowly. But you know, it's just like pop the movements that it kind of like devolves back to that. But with jumping, you have a pulse that you have to keep track of, and that gets you into that flow state far more easier than the consistent motion that flying and swimming gives you. So,
you also had your hand up, or was it already? Didn't you? I thought I had said.
Yeah, no.
I think because jumping is it's fast, it's dynamic, and you're making wide movements, so you're taking ownership of the very big space. And like we have fast games, racing games, and whatnot, but jumping is closer to you because it's closer to the body. Like controlling a car, yes, it's like the extended outdoor of the steering car, but it still feels further away from actually feeding the movement than having a humanoid character and feeding the jump in itself and its effect and the grabbing of this white space.
Excuse me, before I want to direct this question to Kai because he made a lot of platformer games. So what do you think? What makes you want to make them dedicated to platforming game? Because about genres.
I'm gonna be completely honest, jumping is just fun because it's liberating. And you can do it a lot.
It's different from flying?
Flying, I mean, it's all sort of considered already. Flying is more of a fantasy on jumping. You can jump. Everybody here can jump. It's possible, you just gotta like go up and then land again. Just close the door, you can actually be yourself in reality. And it's also in a sense, but it liberates you, it leaves you with some restrictions. So it's still about finding that path like this, going like, okay, I'm going to do this jump, dash, wall jump, then climb up and drop. In this case, I actually recommend watching the level design video for Celeste, where the developers actually talk about how they work on levels and how a singular challenge can have 3 different approaches to solving it. Because it's the tools that you get to jump are sort of deliberate you, but you still need to train them to get it correctly and creatively to solve the problem in your face, the obstacle.
See. So next to you. After you.
Also, what I like what just came to my mind is that jumping conveys way more power and energy than flying, for example, even though it might use up more power, it doesn't convey the motion because the stretching and pulling when you like jump off and you land again and all the movement is way more. I think you also said it's way more dynamic than like flying, which is like kind of stiff motion, even if you like have wings and flap your arms or whatever. But jumping is so powerful and like spring loaded that it's like fun to look at.
I think you also had a stand up.
Yeah, well, I think about like flying is jumping, for example, but like, I think we talked about like the chaos mentioned like what the challenge is, but like jumping is like kind of like thinking like you have like even like competence, like you can like skill and master it. You got like flying, for example, like I don't know Minecraft. So you just press the button and just fly around. But like jumping in Minecraft, like you kind of timing with the Roro that I mentioned before that. So like you kind of like have need to interact like with the jumping, not really with the flying. Sometimes depending on your game, like easier like for the switcher. Like, so jumping, I kind of satisfying.
So kind of like jumping is more requires you to have more challenge, right? Challenge your skills. Yeah. How about floppy birds? Is it also challenging?
I was actually thinking of the slide bird and fly, jumping, vice and fun, vice, for example, jetpack railway, like do it all those things. Also kind of
That you were just like jumping motion.
Yeah, it's jumping, it's like keep flying, it's like
Perfect guy, it's the next flying, but it's like it's like really jumps basically.
Yes,
I think
yeah, I think the core reason why jumping is so enjoyable is giving the emotion, and I personally think that it plays into our playfulness of our inner child. Like when we were a child, we used to jump a lot, but adults we don't do that a lot anymore. But still, when we play games, it kind of plays into that playfulness, but that we still have with our with ourselves. But we're not like doing it in real world. But if I compare it to flying, for example, the emotion is completely different. With jumping, I feel playful. But when I think about flying, I feel freedom, for example. I feel different emotion or screaming. The emotion is different. Discovery, for example, things like that. So I think playfulness is
the one behind you. Excuse me, I don't know your name. Okay.
I guess I kind of wanna like build on that because like so jumping is like it moves you upwards and usually forwards towards something. So those are just like psychologically very positive directions, like in terms of movements. Like something that moves you up usually feels good, and moving forward also feels good. And since it's so energetic, it's so sudden, kind of it gives you that great sense of achieving something that inherently feels good.
Excuse me, I saw someone there.
I wanna say like, I have very vivid dreams, also lucid dreams, so I wanna bring in some kind of real life experience of jumping versus flying. And like, I think even in real life jumping would be a lot more fun than actually being able to fly. Because when you're flying, like floating in the middle of the air, you don't have any contact to forces, feeling towards anything. You're just hanging there in the air without control. While jumping, you regularly got contact to the floor or walls that then can direct your movement into another direction. So jumping is like movement. You got always momentum. It's like being in a roller coaster, and you have this feeling in your stomach when you're getting up and then falling down again. And with like it's lacking that momentum. It's just nothing. Then the wind comes and goes into random direction. That's my flying experience. You mentioned something where I'm just going to throw a word out, and this is now going to be a test for everybody. So she said in Sonja's classes, who knows what e-links is and where it comes from?
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing of that. E-links.
The thing that are.
You know the name Kaiwa?
No, I'm not sure.
No? Okay. He's a French philosopher, and he found 4 categories of game types. Alia, the game with the dice, which is about luck and testing das Schicksal, fate. Then Arbon, that's competition. Then there is mimicry, which we're going to do next semester, and there is e-links. And e-links is the most volatile category, but it's exactly what you said. It's the roller coaster rush. It's the swing rush. It's the feeling of exactly the thing you get in your stomach, where you turn on the spot very quickly, and then the feeling you have afterwards. And of course, whatever you feel when you stimulate your body from the inside, consuming stuff can also lead to e-links, like drinking beer, for example.
Let's start with here first, because you've already said a lot.
But jumping is really short, and also the reward is really fast-paced. Like you jump and then you have a reward of getting to what you wanted. And so I think it's a lot of fun because you don't need to fly a long distance or a long while to get to something, but rather you just get there.
Immediate result. Here.
Also, to look at it from a different perspective, I think that jumping is deeply connected with joy for us humans. When we look at animations or comics, when characters express immense joy, they always jump. They always like be happy and throw their arms up and jump around out of joy. And I think that this feeling also is conveyed in like jumping in video games.
Come on, let's get that.
Taking what everybody has said so far, I think we can compare the difference in emotion between a lot of those types of mechanics, like flying, swimming, jumping. Say you look at the same game, for example, Mario 4 had all those things, right? And there's like, I think only 2 levels where you spend the whole time swimming. And the pace of those is much more relaxed, right? It's the constant, repetitive type of motion where you're very prepared ahead, you can react to it very far in advance. Whereas jumping is this constant dance of depth, right? Like even when there's no obstacles, you're still constantly thinking about, okay, where am I going to land? How far is the jump going to go? There's so many little variables to how you control the jump. That's why it's inherently just more exciting. Mario has the flying path, which
Yeah.
Maybe you can type that.
Yeah, Super Mario 3.
Maybe the 164.
That's 60. Okay.
Because gravity is still affecting you constantly, and you're basically the way you utilize the flying path is by sort of descending and then taking that momentum and turning it to upwards trajectory, right? Maybe type in Mark or flying. Yeah, it's like it's really comfortable.
I think that just to summarize basically from what Lou said and what you said, right? There's of controlling, having control, having feedback, which is the one thing that's the most satisfying about the game. Right? Press a button and that you get a reaction. I mean, if you ever wonder where your urge to do something with your little sibling comes from, it's because basically pushing them, tickling them is pressing their buttons. I mean, in America, the expression is to press someone's button, and basically what you try to do is to get a reaction out of them. So feedback is the most satisfying.
So you can see, even though you're flying, you're still constantly descending. And I think unless, well, again, it depends on the type of motion you're going for, right? We try to discuss, okay, why are there so many games with jumping? Because jumping is inherently exciting, right? Whereas with something like flying or swimming, you have to introduce some other form of friction, right? In this case, it's the fact that you're descending.
Also, the up metaphor, that was really good. Like in a book that I'm also going to introduce to those people that still have classes with me, is the metaphors lived by Rocco and Johnson. And one of the central metaphors are where in our language we can find metaphors for up. And so I'm feeling up today, right? Up and about. Like the more you listen to it, if you try to meta-analyze all the expressions, you will always find upwards motion in joy and living. And so the comic mention was very fitting for that.
It made me think of something because right now it's a little bit, the talk has already become from the mechanic of the game, the jump, that how the jumps feels like becomes how to express through jump. And I think that's pretty interesting because both comic and games that has a limited way for players to express their feeling. Like the facial is very limited, the hand gesture is very limited, but when it comes to jump, there is always the point that you can express yourself very immediately. And also, so like in MMO or in some other games, when players comes together, when they are excited, they just jump. Jumping, kind of like that.
Have you ever seen anybody with springs in their shoes? Do those shoes exist? Do you know that? Shoes with springs where you're like,
I don't feel it.
I want them.
You have something to talk about? I mean, like when I was a child, like 20 years ago, I already have kind of shoes with the bob. I don't know, kind of like something like hollow inside, and they make you jump back higher. I don't know. There's a myth, but actually it doesn't work.
Yeah, I like those. Yeah, I like those.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh,
So did you want to talk about something or?
Oh yeah, it's just like what Jan said, I can't remember that I guess like jumping also inherently has like balancing for it built in usually, like because it's so clear that obviously you can jump high, right? You have to fall down at a certain point. So the game designers don't have to do a lot to limit the players jumping, they can just like let you do it like constantly. So I guess it just feels good because it's kind of for free to use, kind of. You have like an ability that lets you fly or something, there's usually like a time limit or something, so it always like feels precious to you, but you're also like limited in it, and jumping is just, you can always just jump. So even if you walk from A to B, you can jump in between, just feels more fun than simply walking, right? So it's like such a spammable kind of move because there's no cost associated with it.
It's literally like Mario is like flying also on fire.
Yeah, and so it feels more stretchy. Like, you can always jump at every point. Yeah, I don't think you would find most jump.
I just think of something like, because there's so many games that involve jumps and they have different mechanics, and like in Super Mario Bros. The original game that gives you more gravity when you are falling, but there's also some games that decrease the gravity when you are falling. You know what kind of games doing it? Decrease the gravity when you're falling. There's actually some games doing that.
I got some super random examples, like the Kingdom Hearts games and stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of, but the example in my mind is actually Smash.
Oh yeah, well it depends on the game.
Yeah, because you're trying to be alive on the platform, so actually they decrease the gravity when you're falling in this game. Yes.
Yeah, like and also thing was Smash was, like it heavily depends what character you have. So what the gravity, so how we go to Venus, like for example, what we do, like jumping Smash was a lot of like personality of the character, was like very like what really wanted to express the character through gameplay feeling. But like, even though everyone has to take control, every character plays a particular personality. While like that's an action more focused game, like focus for very fast. While the other moves you keep up stuff for very
And
because I can just float somewhere.
in Kirby, I believe Kirby can stay in the air 5 times, right? When you jump, like five jumps. Yeah, 5 jumps, I believe so. And
they can kind of like glide from like right to left with their umbrellas and their
skirts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of hits. Only lighting motion. So it can actually like when we talk the Super Smash for me, you can like lie under like the normal ring stage and drop a shot again.
Yeah, some like not some, but they also want to find out like the wall and like happy which is fly. But now they got the roof for a higher jump. Because I think it is flying in that way is less responsive. But also you press the fly button is like only responsive to kind of half control. Now they just adding a fixed down with 2 control the more responsive. And yeah, each day also have a special kind of live. If you press the button longer, you can dial left and right.
Yeah.
And you can also like cancel them. So there's also like more protected responsibility. And we're talking about like different kind of jumps, like how you can push into it. So why it's not going to get more weight on the
And there's also lesson because you have instead of like the jumping ability, because every character in Smash has like a rescue ability where they can jump to get back to the stage. And because they have like a little lightning that they can shoot and they control, and they can use it mid-air, and they will more or less like stay in the air. They will sing really slowly, but most of the time like stay in the air, and then they can hit themselves with the like little ball lightning to teleport themselves like back onto the stage basically. So this is all thing where they like reduce the gravity for the characters while in the ability by like 80-90% or something.
Do you think about any other situation that also might makes you want to decrease the gravity? Like in Super Mario Bros. Is because you want to stay on the platform, but everybody want to knock you away. But can you think of any other situation?
In very random that only, but like in Armored Core, it's a form of commitment. So, when you decide to go into the air, you're using stamina to fly, and you're moving forward in the air as well, and that has its benefits. But you're short of stuff there as well, right? So if you show 4 moments to go airborne, you're going to take a long time to get on the ground, and that can be very, I guess, strategically detrimental.
Yeah, that's kind of strict because once you fly in the air, you are also exposed yourself in the air. Like if you are in the PvP, that might be not a good decision because the other player might just use the rocket to shut you down. So
yeah,
it just depends on what kind of situation you have. Yes.
If we talk about Zelda, for example, it was a great way to make sure the player can get down from a high position with traversing a huge amount of area, like of distance, and super satisfying. And you use your glider and jump down from a tower or something, or from a ledge or from a mountain, and just fly over like half of the continent. It's super satisfying, and you can actually like get from point A to point B really effective.
It's interesting that you speak about Zelda because in Ocarina of Time, I was at the beginning, it was so weird not to be able to jump by yourself, right? They put the roll in there, so at least you can smash a button, because imagine you could just run over Hyrule and you can do nothing, right? Can't even jump. So part of you is like, I want to be like, woohoo, right? And so all you can do is roll. You have to trust that the game designers calculated correctly for you. Did they? You can't jump in Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah, it's a scene.
They added it.
It's really not for.
No, not for jumping. I think just for satisfying this player.
So the funny anecdote, I think the director of Ocarina of Time, he hates like jumping in 3D. He hates like the depth perception of that. So it's like fucking just automated, right? That was like that.
It really depends on what kind of games you like, because as I know, I haven't played it yet. Dark Souls don't have jump. So maybe they have a dash jump, I think, but there is no jump in Dark Souls.
No vertical jumping, only forward jumping.
Yeah, only forward jumping.
We added jumping in Footster just because after playtest one person complained and they were like, yeah, the game is nice and everything, but it really needs jumping. Like now we have a jump button, it doesn't do anything. There's not a single place in the game where you ever need the jump or benefit from the jump. The only thing that happens is you can jump 10 times, and after the 10th time, Footster will be like, and basically pissed at you for making sure exercise, and then you can't jump for I think a minute.
However,
I was like, when I started a new game, like jumping is like
I have to tell you that jumping is a very hard mechanic in a game. If a game has jump as their mechanic, you have to respect your developer, because especially in the 3D game, there's so many collider in the jump in the 3D game. Like I suppose that in Dark Souls, the reason why they don't have jumping because they want to put more focus on the combats, because jumping is so hard in a lot of games. You have to detect a lot of things. They're going to create a lot of bugs. You are going to see a lot of glitch in the game.
But Dark Souls is also, when I think about Dark Souls, I also think about armor focus. In a way, like Dark Souls is armor based, right? And how would you want to communicate with my armor boy?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
But actually, everybody falling down the cage, you can also decrease the gravity, jump again.
Yeah, kind of.
But that's like
Yeah, exactly. You know that.
All right, I believe that's the session.
Thank you very much.
I think just also because Theo reminded me when he asked about ghosts and goblins. I didn't put a slide in it for it, but everything I've said in here, you can break it. You don't need to follow these like good practices because they're just good practices. There are no rules in the game. Yeah, and if you, for example, if you want to have a game where jumping is a commitment, a conscious decision, it's fine if it's restrictive. Then that's part of the game experience you're designing. Initially I actually wanted to put a slide rule in there. I didn't because I was tired and needed sleep at the end of making this whole thing.
So you did it yesterday.
Before we wrap up,
Can we quickly applaud?
do you have your
Five
call?
and
Yeah.
for everybody to upload their slides on the Forum Ludorum spaces.
Yeah, I will, and I'll probably also add in a slide about, hey, yeah, you can break this stuff because I reached it out.
Wait, where is it? I don't.
And the video that we now didn't watch, please.
It's like, slides. Yeah, again, everything I said in that.
Pues de YouTube hoy vamos a jugar este juego que le hace un parecido a Mario. Entonces aquí vamos a entrar a este nivel y estamos empezando mal, pero no hay pedo porque voy a hallar los truquitos de este juego. Y no mames. Pues brinco acá y ¡qué vergas! Pues yo pienso que tengo que irme para atrás. A ver. ¡No mames, el pinche techo también! Ok. ¡No mames! Son unas pinches águilas, mira. Lo logré. ¡No mames! Son unas pinches águilas para volar. Háblame, Jesús. A ver. Lo logré, soy bien vergas. A ver, brinco y... Está bien, otro nivel. A ver. ¿Y si brinco? ¡No mames! ¡Eso de dónde chingado salió! Pues a ver. Si brinco acá y... A ver, ¿qué haré? Si no se mueve la pinche cosa. A ver. Oh, ya entiendo. Es el bloque que se mueve cuando brinco. A ver. Pinche brincazo. Ya. ¡No mames! A ver, otra vez. Como Michael Jordan. Y no mames, pinche pared. ¡Culero! A ver. Y se hago otra vez el brinco y ya lo logré. ¡No mames! Ya se anda cayendo la pinche pared también. A ver. Ya lo logré, soy bien verga. ¡No mames!
Oh, you know, it's such a good case designer to be able to build something like that.
Predict all those.
Yeah, exactly.